Kidding. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go over what we're doing. And here we go. All right. So let me turn off this stupid thing. All right. So if you did not finish your For As Me with Love and Squalor questions, you can take some time to do that today. But the main focus of what we're doing today is that was our last short story, and as always with a unit, as we finish the unit, we need an assessment, and ideally, or at least hopefully you'll see that this is the case. The assignments I've been giving you have not just been sort of busy work. They're leading toward preparing for this, which is we're going to finish the unit with a paper. And so I'm going to open that up. Let's see. I don't think you guys can see when I do that, right? Are you looking at a Word document right now? Just give me, no, you're not. Okay, so I got to reshare. All right. This is in the module. It's also linked in the announcement. So it's going to take me a few minutes because what I did is I gave you a bunch of choices, all right, of different things that you can write about, different approaches, and I gave you some starters for it. The first three are my usual, and I'm going to go over them in a second, A, B, and C. And they're thematically connecting. All of these deal with two of the short stories, all right, of your choosing. Choice D, and then I turned it into Q, and then something else. Those are all things I came up with during the pandemic, and I kind of liked them as options because they're a little bit different than your traditional paper, but they still have the same components of reading and writing and analyzing the text. So, like I said, it's going to take me a minute. This is sort of like a menu. I will give further guidance, rubrics, and instructions for the tasks. And I'm going to ask you today which one you're going to decide to do. So the first one, I call it about the individual because thematically the focus is on using two of the story, demonstrate how each story seems to view, or each author seems to view the identity, the concept of identity of who we are. All right, the importance of memory or how characters see themselves. You might discuss, and these are suggestions, they're not requirements. If you have a way into this that makes sense, that's fine. You might discuss how suffering of some kind affects or highlights or strengthens who their idea of self is, who they think they are, their relationship to the past, like Earl, their ideas about the future, maybe like Connie, and maybe etc. These might be approaches. All right. I'm going to come back to this part next week, but each of these requires you to analyze the writer's style, and that'll be partly done with the use of quotes. And that's where we're using the words like diction and imagery, but I'll come back to that later. So some ways to approach this. You might compare how Connie defines herself versus how Earl defines himself and people in general. Both of these stories also have, if you don't recall, but you'll go back and look at it. For instance, Connie was like one person at home and one person when she was out. She was kind of a child, but also wanted to be an adult. Earl was like two people. So you have this fractured concept of what a person is, right? Like two different things. I also did that long-winded thing about how the image of music helped Connie know who she was. She was the person who liked this kind of music. She was a teenager. She was not like her parents. And then you have Earl, who defines himself as the man with a quest for revenge. But he also has this fractured self, right? He's got in that one letter, there's the list of how everybody is sort of a bunch of different people, the genius, the person who sits on the couch, whatever. And he is also sort of divided in the story itself, where he is the guy writing the letter who has confidence and a mission, and he's also the schlep roaming around the hospital. So what you're doing is like, what do the stories seem to say about identity, what a person's self is in their stories, right? And you're comparing them. You might talk about how does the narrator find meaning, and how does the woman in the yellow wallpaper, the narrator, I got a typo, find meaning in the yellow wallpaper, or Earl show about how we must find meaning individually. So I'll fix that one up. But so, for instance, in the yellow wallpaper, it was very much herself as a writer, her ability to express herself was something that kind of held her together as a person, made her be who she was. When that was deprived of her, she felt she went mad. Earl is also somebody who needs a purpose. We talked about how revenge, as bad as it is, at least gave him a way uh, of purpose in life, and without it, he would have no life at all, and that's why maybe at the end he intentionally keeps seeking revenge, right? So these have to do with identity, like the individual. This one is, as its title might imply, um, this is something about the conflict in the stories between a person and their society. So this may be the way society has expectations about gender. So that one right off the bat, we did something with Connie from Where Are You Going? You read the little thing about the lens. We also did something with that with yellow wallpaper. So gender might be a way that society and the individual are in conflict. All right, how society's values change or challenge a character, or some other ways we are in conflict with their world. Possible approaches, I'll give you these for all of them. Look at how Earl is cut off from society, right? One of the things we said is he can't get married, he can't get punished, he can't get rewarded or punished, versus how Connie is driven by her culture, hanging out at the diner, listening to music, being a teen in the teen world. Those things bring them into the problems that they deal with, all right? Or gender, like I said, in Where You're Going, Where Have You Been, and yellow wallpaper. I'm definitely leaving some stories out. We just did Esme. We also had, uh, what am I forgetting? I don't know. I'll put a list on here. And eventually I'll talk about all of them. Choice C is talking about either violence or suffering in the stories. How does it develop characters or themes? So for that, obviously, as I was saying in my little analysis of for Esme with Love and Squalor, what helps them connect is that they're both people that have been through trauma. She lost both parents. He's been damaged by what he's seen in war. Um, and there's an either or up here. You don't do both for the, well, you might, but you don't really do both for this one. And this one, so the other way of approaching this is talking about violence. Sometimes kids look at the stories I give and they say, why are there so many violent people? We have two people that are not serial killers, but maybe one is Arnold Friend and Earl. And the question there is really, why does the author choose to use violence? And what you would do is look at why, like, so for instance, how come Connie, you know, taking chances, how come she doesn't just get in trouble with the police or fail a class in school? Why does the author choose to have a sort of murderer come in and give her comeuppance? All right. How is suffering treated? In For Esme with Love and Squalor, there's very little statement of it, and like I said, it's sort of a comedy thing, and these until the end where we can see where there's still humor though. I mean, it's still Clay is kind of a dope, and it's a little bit funny the way he shares things casually about his roommate or his soldier pal with his wife, with his girlfriend at home. All right, so if you're doing the violence thing, you're comparing the function of violence in the story, not necessarily why the character. So somebody was trying to do this and they said, I know why Earl commits violence, but I don't know why Arnold Friend commits violence. But that was the wrong way to go about it, because Arnold Friend doesn't really have motivations. So again, I'll come back to these things in greater depth as you make decisions. Okay, choice D is to create your own thesis. You may have a sense of connection between the stories that I have not made here. You could do that. Just I want to approve it. You can also choose to apply a critical lens. You would need a little bit more research, and if you choose this one, I can guide you to it. So in other words, you would just take a psychological lens or a allegorical lens or a gender lens and apply it to two stories. Boom, done. All right, but again, I would give you more guidance on that if you choose that one. You need, if you do this, to have me approve the thing, right? And then I get into sort of the weird stuff. These are the variations. In this one, special option, electric, a great sequel of the movie Breakin'. Write a new, if you're a creative person, I know this applies to a minority of you. Maybe you like to actually write creatively. You can write a new chapter for one of the stories. Maybe you add in another scene of Earl getting ready for his murder. Maybe you add a chapter into For Esme with Love and Squalor. Maybe you write yellow wallpaper from the man's point of view, the husband, whatever strikes you. But what you would be doing here that is objectively gradable is that you're continuing the themes of the story. All right, and you're also going to try to mimic the style of the writer, right? Point of view, word choice, and there is then at the end a little explanation of the choices you made. So you'll be analyzing one of the texts and your own writing about that text. All right. Then I had one kid one year who wrote a short story in another class that she felt was able to be connected thematically, and I let her do this. So if you've done that, you can write a comparison of your story to the thing. But again, I need to approve that. And then finally, this is the last one, and this one is longer, but you'll see why in a second. This is where, so one of the things about our story, for Esme with Love and Squalor, that could only happen in World War II. It's tied to a historical moment, right? That's why he meets her. That's why they both have their suffering. And, so that it set up the strange situation where a man could sit down and talk to a little girl and have a connection. Yellow Wallpaper could only happen in its time and place where gender was so restrictive, where psychology was so bad. We talked a little bit about how Connie's story is connected to the 60s. So what this one does is you are also obviously going through a historical period. So what you would do is write about yourself reading these stories in a pandemic, or if you want on the cusp of an election. And what it would be is then your thoughts on your world right now, and while having insight into, the story. I have to tweak this thing. So you would kind of write reflectively about yourself and then how you view these books. And in fact, about 50% of it would be about the stories and its style and themes. Again, I would give you guidance for this. The rest should deal with the effect of these times on you, your life, your world, or your loved ones. This does not need to be some emotional confession, though. If you've had a hard time, it could be cathartic. It's up to you. But so this one is sort of like you writing about you reading the stories in your situation. Again, I'll expand on all those, but I just want to get kind of through this so that you can take your first steps today. Right? All these papers are going to deal with 2 stories, except where I said they're all going to be about 3 pages minimum and 3 quotes. What I want you to do, is to today, and I'll show you, it's in the discussion, you're going to choose your stories. You're going to tell me what your thesis might be. And I forgot, there's one other thing that you're going to do. But I wanted to mention something about theses, and you can still use the little starters I have, but they need to be shaped into sentences. But a good thesis, and again, more on this later when I haven't already talked your ears off for 13 minutes. A good thesis will propel your whole thing. It should be something that needs to be proven. So something like, though Connie and Where You're Going, Where You've Been, and the narrator in Yellow Wallpaper may seem like very different characters, because they're in different decades. She's a child. This is a married woman. The woman is thoughtful and internal, and Connie is thoughtless and sort of shallow. Right? They each suffer because of the limits and expectations of their society. Right? So this is something that needs evidence. It needs to be proven. A bad thesis might be for Esme and Yellow Wallpaper use first person point of view to tell their stories. That is not going to do anything. You're just going to wind up summarizing stuff. All right. So I'm going to help you with those things. Now, when Elizabeth is done with her makeup, we will get to. I'll close this out. I've stopped sharing. Somebody's in the chat. I can't read the chat. Okay, it happens. Don't worry. One last thing. I'm going to let you start doing stuff in a second. Let me just share one more screen. Say at least Elizabeth's on camera. Okay, so you can go to the announcements. The paper I just did is there. You're going to go to discussions, all right, and you're going to answer these 3 things in the discussion. I'd like you to do that by the end of the day. All right, which paper topic, which stories, and a rough idea of your thesis. Okay. And like I said, if you need to, finish up for Esme, do that too. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop recording this.